there's a little bit of back end that needs to be done, including improving your supply chain. If you need to get more farmers on board, this is the time you're doing. If you need to do training on quality control, that's what needs to be happening in the background.
At what point do you transition from posting things on your own to getting some professional help?
I can see you're a proper businessman, because when you're getting into that, then you're moving away from being a farmer to actually being a business person. So congratulations on that.
My name is Mark, as Seda said, Mark Murungaru. I run a startup, well, call it a startup, but about 18 months now, a dairy processing company. We've had a family farm for 40, 50 years now, started by my parents, that has gone from about 1 to 3 cows to now 200 plus. We are doing about 2,000 kilos of milk a day. And in fact, the reason we came into existence, or at least the business that I'm working with, the reason we came into existence is we were trying to solve a problem for the farm. What used to happen in the past is, and I think it still happens today, is you'd be a farmer, say for example, with 10 cows producing 100 liters of milk. One of the processors would come to you and tell you, for these 100 liters of milk per day, if you guarantee me this milk, I'll pay you X amount per liter. And so what you do is, with that kind of figure, for about a 12-month period, you'd go and budget with that. So if you're going to hire more people on the farm, if you want to buy machinery, you have that guaranteed contract that will give you that amount of money. So what happens is, say for example, it starts raining and there's a surplus in the market. For those who, whose parents maybe do some farming, you'd find yourself having the processor will come with all manner of reason why they can't honor that price anymore. So they'll either start by rejecting your milk, or they will offer a much lower price, to the point where if you'd gone, say, to a bank to borrow for some machinery, say, to help you with feeding, all of a sudden you find yourself struggling simply because your sales are not matching your expenses. So for us, what we did with the volume of milk back then, I think the project has been, in existence for about, we're only 18 months old, but the conception of the idea was almost 12 years ago. And back then, we were only producing about 500 liters. So fast forward till today, what we were looking at doing was, for us, unfortunately, our farm is on a very terrain-unfriendly location in Nyeri. So we are sort of on some slope, so we can't really mechanize. We have to use labor, manual labor for some of our processes, where, for example, we'd use machinery to help us out. So with that, with those issues that we're getting with our processors when we sell the milk, it became unsustainable for us to keep selling our milk to these processors. So we figured, let's do this. Let's stabilize the price of the what we call the farm gate milk, to help the farm stabilize as we continue looking for markets for these products that we're making. So last year, sometime in January, we woke up, rather after a long time of, thinking about the business and also building and buying equipment. We finally launched a brand, and I hope some of you have seen it in the market. It's called Abony. So we process cheeses, we process yogurts. We target the high end of the market, and it's not by accident. We did that because our cost of production per liter of milk is a bit higher than most farmers. Say, for example, people who just simply go to let their cows go out to the pasture and then come back in the evening. That's a much easier and a much better system of, frankly, farming. But for us, unfortunately, because of the terrain, we have to use a zero-grazed system. So things have not been so bad, so to speak. It's not been a very easy journey, but we launched in January 2024. Slowly but surely, we've been able to list in all but maybe one major retailer, in our case, Carrefour, which coincidentally, we have a meeting next week. But we are in Naivas, we're in Quickmart, we are in Zucchini, we are in Greenspoon. So not so bad. But some of the issues that I think I'm now facing, and I think our head of marketing, who just happens to be my wife, would have been here and should have done a much better job of asking these questions, but I'll ask them anyway. First things first, if she were here, she'd tell you, we're squarely in FMCG, and that's usually an area that I feel scared, in terms of dealing. If anything goes bad, PR-wise, unaanikwa, so to speak. Social media, this day and age, everything goes public very quickly. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask, and I know she would have asked if she was here, is she used to manage our social media aspects. So whether it be taking a photo of my son eating cheese and posting it on our website or on our Instagram account. The question that I would have had, and I'm sure should have probably asked, is at what point do you transition from posting things on your own to getting some professional help? Because as the brand is growing, I guess there needs to be some professionality that also comes with that. So for us, we pushed it as far as we could, but we finally got someone to start working it for us. Whether that has improved or not, I think is open to debate, but that was going to be my first question. And then the second question was, in this day and age of digital marketing, I know in the past there used to be a percentage of sales that marketing budgets used to be allocated. Does that change? Has that changed from historical numbers? Has that changed now that digital marketing has come into play? I don't know if that's still the case, and I'm asking as a finance guy now, because one of the things that happens in any company is as soon as budgets need to be cut, the first things that start being cut off are marketing costs. So I would hate to be that person that targets marketing as one of the first things to be reduced when it will clearly have an impact on sales. And then perhaps last but not least, are we at a point where, at what point do you determine that you need in-house resources to help you with marketing? Right now, we're still using a hybrid of consultants and also, a bit of us as the founders to do the marketing. But at what point do you get a full-time dedicated marketer to help us out? So I think those would be my questions.
I'm going to let you answer those questions, but I just have some clarifying questions. Are you having any challenges in sales? Do you have surplus of material? Of products?
So if I'm being very honest, right now, we are actually, demand is outpacing our supply. Yeah, and it's in part because we are also struggling a little bit in terms of sourcing our raw product, which is milk, primarily our milk. Getting the right quality of milk, which is a whole different debate and topic, because we want to start paying farmers for quality rather than quantity. So we, for example, will measure how much fat is in your milk, how much protein is in your milk, so that if someone brings in 10 liters of milk and someone else brings in 8, you might find the person getting 8 liters, bringing in 8 liters, getting more money. And we also want to start extension services where farmers are taught how to breed for high quality milk, whether it be through feeding, breeding, and various other aspects, animal management. So those are some of the things we're gonna slowly start as we go down this road. But in terms of the questions you've asked, our sales have been growing. They've reached a place where they've plateaued a little, but I think that will be solved by getting more supplies into the market, and that will be solved generally from sourcing milk in a more sustainable manner.
Yeah, I think first I'd like to congratulate you for the vertical integration. That's something I was going to suggest, but I can see you're a proper businessman, because when you're getting into that, then you're moving away from being a farmer to actually being a business person. So congratulations on that. In the FMCG space, what I'd say is the only way you can win is through distribution. And now that you've started kind of like getting into partnerships with many distributors, there's some things that you can exchange also in kind. So they do actually have quote unquote marketing budgets for their clients. So try and see if you can negotiate with them to try and see also what they can exchange with you in kind. So whether it's maybe they're going to give you maybe a certain shelf or certain positioning, or even, for example, like a brand like Carrefour, if they were to push your products to the app, then there's an opportunity there. So with your distributors, I'd say try and see if you can really negotiate with them, especially on the marketing side. The question around posting on your own or getting professional help, maybe I'd ask a follow-up question for you, like what problem would you be looking to solve with either posting on your own? Is it that you no longer have capacity, or you're seeing that maybe you're no longer getting the kind of engagement you used to get?
So I think it's a bit of both. I think it's a bit of getting the right post to get the right reactions from those posts. What we perceive to be perhaps a perfect post or a great post may not really be the case. You probably want to get an objective opinion and from someone who tells you, well, this is good. This might only work in a very confined or family space, but for a much larger audience, the types of posts that you want to have are this type. There's also things to do with how the brand is carrying itself from platform to platform, or from, say, for example, even how you do a banner to how it translates to the websites. Because sometimes you'll throw a brand name. For example, our logo, for example, is, I believe it's blue. You should know this, but it's the name Abony should always be in blue. But you'll find that, for example, in some cases we're changing the colors, throwing around some things around, and we're not really following the brand book as we should be doing. So that message carries consistent regardless of which platform you're marketing on. I think that's where, for me, that question emanates from. Why? I mean, at what point do you get someone who tells you, don't do this, do this, if you have to do this in this structured manner, etc., yeah.
Good.
I'm just saying, on this side, people who you are our client when it comes to design, we are crying. That's all I'm saying. And I'll tell you why. Because you actually said very quickly that the first place to cut numbers will be on marketing. But I feel there's a lot more stuff that has to happen in the background. One of the things that I'm surprised, because Carrefour will ask you this, is how many products you have. Okay, because your product, I think, expires pretty fast. Maybe they might not say that, but for many people who have stock, that's the first thing they ask: how much stock do you have to be able to meet the demand? Because they're not going to give you shelf space if, when they give you shelf space, you can't fulfill the orders, because that's where they make their monies, from the retail space. So there's a little bit, for me, I feel there's a little bit of back end that needs to be done, including improving your supply chain. If you need to get more farmers on board, this is the time you're doing. If you need to do training on quality control, that's what needs to be happening in the background before some of these things that we're talking about. But I don't want to take business away from Verge.
And I think that what she's saying is also tying into the last question you'd asked around, do I have to have in-house resources, or do I have to outsource? I'd say in the FMCG space, it makes sense to have a digital team or a marketing team if you want to do your own direct consumer channels. Yeah, so where it's like maybe you want better margins, and that means you're able to control that. So in such a situation, it would make sense to have a team in-house. But if you're still going for a distributor type model, then it's always good to collaborate with your distributors. And then additionally, the kind of resources that you might need would probably be things like category managers. So, for example, if you're coming up with a new product, you have people they have the pulse on the ground. They can observe, they see maybe why customers are picking a certain brand of another brand. Maybe if something is placed on shelf number 2 is selling better than shelf number 1, because maybe there's a perception that shelf number 1 is expensive. So things like that. So maybe working with category managers, but if you want to have your own direct consumer channels, then it might make sense to collaborate.
I think I'll keep mine quite short. It's like a really sensitive microphone. I'll keep mine quite short. I think similar to what Mark has said and what you've talked about as well, there are, this is their page. I wasn't just like miscellaneously looking at yogurts and stuff. It looks like that's what I'm doing. But yeah, I think there's the business side and then there's the marketing side. And you've spoken quite well in terms of you always prioritize what the business needs. And this then goes into that second part of the questions you've asked, because each one of them requires some form of investment. And you've heard me say this before, but you invest where the need is and invest what you can proportionately put into it. So at some point for FMCGs, especially as they get larger, you will find that the marketing need is scaled to a point where it doesn't make sense to do it yourself, or it doesn't make sense to have part-time people on it, which is why you find so many of these big FMCGs are the biggest clients to agencies, because scale eventually breaks the system. Like, you will end up with more marketers in your organization than you have trade people, and you need trade people because they contribute to the bottom line more directly. So there's a point where you have to make the decision of when do we scale? So I'm going back to the whole thing I said earlier of just, the insight, iterate, and invest, which is essentially just that if the current setup you have, where you have consultants and then a little bit of in-house, is solving today's problem, maintain. That's not the problem to solve. Let's move on to the problem that does need solving. If it's not going to, like right now, where sales have plateaued, if the increase that's possible is not going to get you to a point where you can afford a full house team. So if we look at it like, if you do max out completely, are you able to afford a full in-house team? If not, then maintain the consultancy structure. You'd rather put that money, my general belief, you'd rather put that into marketing spend. You'd rather put it into ads, you'd rather put it into SEO, you'd rather put it into expertise, because you can then get specific experts who can come in and tell you, this is where you go, this is what you do, and it'll tide you over for, a quarter, a year, however long you need to get to where you need to get to, so that the primary effort, the primary expense goes to the business. I like saying this and this is just in closing. You don't want to ever get to a point where you shift from your core business into marketing as your core function. There are companies that do that, but that's just because they're coasting. So there are really massive companies out there that have like enormous marketing teams and brand managers at like 10 different levels, and there's this regional, and then there's local and national, and down to like, this is the Nairobi brand manager for this drink. I debate the validity of that. I genuinely debate. I think that the thing you want to have in-house is strategic expertise. You want to get the people, like he was saying with category managers, you want to get that person who has deep category insight. That's the person you want to invest in. So if you're investing on that side, that's what I'd do. And on content, I always look at it like an asset. What is the easiest way for it to get out the quality you need it to get out at? We would be extremely peeved if like the color was slightly wrong, right? I am that person who will debate the difference between like aqua and teal and this and that, but 99% of people won't. And when you've not yet gotten to the place, like if your brand hasn't hit the place where that level of integrity is going to break something, then what you want is a standard that can be maintained. And yes, it makes sense to pay someone externally to do it, but at the same time, don't over-invest in it. Like, pay for someone good who understands the basics. And I think we've gotten to the point now where a lot of people, Canva allows you to have brand guidelines in it. Photoshop has inbuilt brand guidelines. So what you want to do is pay for the right person that you can afford, who can deliver the right amount of content that you need, and then cap it there until the next milestone, and then scale from there until you get to where you need to get to.